Not everyone ages the same way. In some parts of the world, called Blue Zone, people grow older with less fear, less loneliness, and more purpose. They don't chase youth. They focus on living well. Hello. Welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something curious, interesting, hopeful even. There are places in the world where people seem to age differently, not dramatically, not impossible, just more gently. They live longer, yes, but more than that. They live better, with less pain, less worry, more joy. These places are called Blue Zones. And before we go any further, I want you to know something important. This isn't about perfection. It's not about strict rules or impossible standards or feeling bad about what you haven't done. Not at all. This is just curiosity. A gentle look at what these people do, how they live, what makes their life easier, happier, longer. You don't have to do any of it. You don't have to change anything. Just listen. Just be curious with me, because maybe, just maybe, there's something here that feels right. Something simple. Something you're already doing. Or something small you might want to try, but no pressure. No urgency. No rules. Just curiosity. About these places where people age gently, where getting older doesn't mean getting lonelier or sicker or more isolated, where getting older means more time with friends, more laughter, more purpose, more life. Not rushing life, not fighting aging, just living well for a long time. And that sounds nice, doesn't it? So let's explore together, gently, slowly, without any pressure. Let's see what these Blue Zones can teach us. Not to make you feel bad, not to overwhelm you, but to remind you that aging can be gentle, that life can be good at any age, and that sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful. So breathe, relax, and let's begin. So what are the Blue Zones? The name sounds unusual, but the idea behind it is quite simple. Researchers and writers began noticing something curious. In a few places around the world, people were living much longer than average, but more importantly, they were living better. They stayed active longer. They remained connected to family and friends. They often felt useful, valued, and involved well into older age. These places weren't especially rich. They didn't have advanced technology. They didn't follow complicated health programs. They were just ordinary communities. The term Blue Zones came from researchers marking these areas on maps, circling them in blue ink, when they noticed unusually high numbers of people living into their 90s and beyond. Over time, patterns began to appear. Not secrets, not miracle cures, just common ways of living. Similar rhythms, similar habits, similar values. And what's important to understand is this. The people living in Blue Zones were not trying to live longer. They weren't counting calories. They weren't chasing youth. They weren't following trends. They were simply living their daily lives in ways that felt natural to them, moving through their day, eating familiar foods, spending time with others, resting when needed. The Blue Zones aren't about doing everything right. They're about how life gently unfolds when it's shaped by routine, connection, and purpose. And that's why these places matter. Not because they offer instructions, but because they offer examples, quiet examples of what aging can look like when life is lived at a human pace. So where are these places, these Blue Zones? They're spread across the world, far from each other, in very different cultures. And yet, they share something in common. Let's take a look at them. One of the first Blue Zones identified was Okinawa in Japan. For many years, Okinawa was known for having some of the longest living women in the world. Life there has traditionally been simple. People stayed close to family. They ate modest meals. They moved often, but gently. A slower pace of life was part of the culture. Another Blue Zone is Sardinia, a rugged island in Italy. In some mountain villages, men were living well into their 90s and beyond. Life there often involved walking hills, working with the land, and strong ties between generations. Family wasn't something you visited, it was something you lived inside. Then there is Ikaria, a small Greek island. Ikaria is known for its relaxed rhythm. Meals are unhurried. Afternoons often include rest. People take their time with one another. Life follows the natural day, not the clock. In Nicoya, Costa Rica, another blue zone was found. Here, daily life often included physical work, a sense of purpose, and strong community bonds. People felt needed. They had reasons to wake up each day. And finally, there is Loma Linda in California. This blue zone is different. It's not defined by geography, but by a shared way of life. People there tend to value routine, connection, and moderation. It shows that blue zone patterns can exist even in modern settings. What's important to notice is not how far apart these places are, but how similar daily life feels within them. Different languages, different foods, different traditions, and yet the same gentle rhythms, the same sense of belonging, the same unhurried way of moving through life. And next, we'll begin looking more closely at one of the most common patterns they share, how movement fits into everyday life without being forced, without being intense, just naturally. One of the most noticeable patterns across all blue zones is movement, but not the kind we often think of. Not exercise routines, not gym memberships, not intense workouts. In fact, many people in blue zones never thought of themselves as exercising at all. Movement was simply part of everyday life. They walked because they needed to get somewhere. They carried things by hand. They bent down, stood up, reached, stretched, not as a routine, but as part of living. In Okinawa, people tended gardens. They knelt, stood, and moved slowly through the day. In Sardinia, walking hills was common. Paths were uneven. Life required steady movement. In Ikaria, people climbed stairs, visited neighbors, and moved at their own pace. There was no rush. What's important here is not the amount of movement, but the regularity. Movement happened every day. Gently, naturally, without pressure. And because it was spread throughout the day, it didn't feel exhausting. It felt normal. There was also no idea of pushing the body past its limits. People stopped when they were tired. They rested when they needed to. Movement and rest existed together. That balance matters. As people age, the body often responds better to steady, gentle movement than to sudden intensity. And that's something the blue zones reflect beautifully. Movement was never about burning calories or reaching goals. It was about staying involved in life, staying independent, staying connected to the world around them. And perhaps most importantly, movement wasn't done alone. People walked together, worked together, visited one another. Movement was social. It gave structure to the day and connection to others. And that's a very different way of thinking about movement. Not as something extra to fit in, but as something life naturally provides. And as we'll see next, this same gentle approach shows up in another important area of blue zone life: the way people eat, without obsession, without rules, and without pressure. Another pattern that appears again and again in the blue zones is the way people eat. Not what we might expect. There are no strict diets, no complicated rules, no constant worrying about food. Eating is simple, familiar, unrushed. Meals are built around foods people have eaten their entire lives: vegetables, beans, grains, small amounts of animal foods. Nothing extreme, nothing forbidden. Food is not treated as something to fear, and it's not treated as something to control. It's simply food. In Okinawa, meals were traditionally modest. People often stopped eating before they felt completely full, not out of discipline, but out of habit. In Sardinia and Ikaria, meals were shared. People sat together. They talked. They took their time. Eating was social. It wasn't done quickly, alone, or in a rush. That changes how the body responds to food. When eating is slow, the body has time to recognize fullness, there's less strain, less discomfort, less urgency. Another quiet pattern is that food is eaten at regular times. Meals follow the rhythm of the day, not late at night, not constantly, just steady. And food is enjoyed. There is pleasure here, not guilt, not counting, not punishment. People eat foods they like, prepared in familiar ways, often passed down through generations. And just as important as what is eaten is what is not present. There is very little snacking out of stress, very little eating out of boredom, very little distraction while eating. Food is part of life, not a battle. And over time, this calm relationship with food adds up. It supports steady energy, comfortable digestion, and a sense of ease around meals. The blue zones don't teach us what to eat perfectly. They remind us that eating can be simple, that food doesn't need to be stressful, and that nourishment is not just about nutrients, but about rhythm, familiarity, and sharing life with others. And next, we'll look at another quiet pattern that supports long, gentle lives. The role of rest, slowing down, and allowing space in the day. Another quiet pattern shared across the blue zones is something many modern lives have slowly lost. Rest. Not just sleep at night, but rest, woven gently into the day. In many blue zone communities, life moves at a slower rhythm. There is less rushing, less urgency, less pressure to always be productive. In Ikaria, for example, afternoons often include rest, not because people are lazy, but because the day allows it. A short nap, quiet time, sitting with others, doing nothing in particular. Rest is not seen as something to earn. It's seen as part of being human. In Okinawa, people traditionally follow the natural rhythm of daylight. They woke with the sun. They slowed down in the evening. Life followed the body, not the clock. That rhythm matters. When rest is regular, the body recovers more easily. The mind feels less strained. Stress has fewer places to build. And over time, that gentler pace supports health in quiet but meaningful ways. Another important part of rest is knowing when to stop. In blue zones, people often pause before exhaustion. They don't push through fatigue out of obligation. They listen to the body, to the day, to one another. Rest and activity exist together. Neither one dominates. And this balance creates a sense of steadiness. Life doesn't feel like a constant effort. It feels sustainable. As people age, this becomes even more important. The body asks for kindness, for pauses, for gentler days. And in blue zones, that request is respected. Rest is not treated as a weakness. It's treated as wisdom. A way of preserving energy, a way of staying engaged for longer. And perhaps most comforting of all, slowing down does not mean becoming smaller. It means making room. Room for conversations, room for reflection, room for presence. And next, we'll look at something just as important as food, movement, and rest. The role of purpose, belonging, and feeling needed at every stage of life. Across all blue zones, there is one pattern that may matter more than any other, a sense of purpose. People feel needed. They wake up knowing they still matter. In Okinawa, this idea has a name, ikigai. A reason to get up in the morning. It doesn't have to be big. It might be caring for a garden, helping a neighbor, preparing a meal, looking after grandchildren. Purpose lives in ordinary things. In Sardinia, older adults are not pushed aside. They remain part of daily life. Their experience is respected. Their presence is valued. They are not seen as finished. They are seen as essential. In Nicoya, people often feel a strong connection to family and community. They belong somewhere. They are known. That sense of belonging creates emotional safety. It reduces loneliness. It softens worry. It gives life continuity. And in Loma Linda, shared values and routines bring people together regularly. Connection is not occasional, it's built into life. What's striking is that purpose in the blue zones doesn't come from achievement. It comes from contribution, from being useful, from being relied on, from being part of something larger. As people age, this becomes deeply important. Not feeling invisible, not feeling forgotten, not feeling unnecessary. In the blue zones, older age is not a problem to solve. It's a stage of life that still has meaning, and that meaning keeps people engaged. It keeps them connected. It keeps life feeling worth showing up for. Purpose doesn't require change. It often already exists in the people who depend on you, in the routines you keep, in the quiet roles you play. And when that sense of purpose is protected, aging becomes less about loss and more about continuity. And finally, we'll bring everything together, not to ask you to change, but to remind you that gentle aging is possible, that you are not behind, and that life can still feel rich, connected, and whole at any age. As we come to the end of this story, there's something important to remember. The blue zones are not instructions. They are not rules. They are not a checklist. And they are not a standard you are meant to measure yourself against. They are simply examples of lives lived with rhythm, with connection, and with care. You don't need to live in Okinawa. You don't need to move to Sardinia or Ikaria. You don't need to change your life. And you don't need to do more. Many of the things that support gentle aging are already part of ordinary life. A walk taken without rushing, a meal shared with someone you trust, a moment of rest without guilt, a conversation that feels real. These moments may seem small, but they are not small at all. They are what life is made of. Aging doesn't have to mean losing yourself. It doesn't have to mean becoming invisible, and it doesn't have to mean being left behind. In many parts of the world, growing older simply means continuing to belong, continuing to contribute, continuing to be valued. And that possibility exists everywhere, including right where you are. So if there is one thing to take from the blue zones, it's not a habit or a rule. It's a reminder that life can be lived at a human pace, that connection matters, that rest is wisdom, that purpose does not expire, and that aging can still be gentle. Wherever you are in life, you are not late. You are not behind. You are still part of the story, and that is enough. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I hope this gentle look at the blue zones brings you a little calm, a little reassurance, and a little hope.